anybody purchased a home, say within the past 2 years? You have. So you bought in this, what we call a distressed market. And buyers aren't familiar with the terminology. Sellers, you've heard in the news, the sellers are upside down in their houses. A lot of people are foreclosing. I'll get a lot of calls, and buyers will say, I want to buy a foreclosure. And I'll say, well, why do you want to buy a foreclosure? And they say, oh, because they're cheap on the market. They're the cheapest on the market. You know, you can get a great deal, and, you know, why buy a regular house? Well, the term foreclosure is a process. There's no such thing as a foreclosure property. The properties are either foreclosed on or they're going to be foreclosed on, which is called a pre-foreclosure state. And those are the properties which are short sales. Some pre-foreclosure properties can be bought from an auction. But all of those are properties that are getting ready to be foreclosed on, or they've either been foreclosed on. There are three kind of buyers in the market, pretty much a first-time home buyers, and I think everybody in here is a first-time home buyer, some investors. Are there any investors in the room? Okay, we have one investor, two investors in the room. Those are the buyers that are dominating the market right now. So I pretty much wanted to go through what the terminology is so that you'll know what types of properties that you're buying, the benefits or the not so good benefits of buying each type of property. I passed out a handout that said winning with foreclosures. I'm pretty much following this handout. In this market today, you pretty much want to know three things. You want to know the language of the types of properties that you're buying, the playing field, who's selling those type of buyers, and also the rules that come along with them. Because buying each type of property is a little bit different, doesn't follow the same pattern. I was speaking to Vera the other day, and I'm finding that every transaction is different. We're coming up with different obstacles that we have to overcome with each type of purchase. But I'm finding that people are thinking that you can buy a traditional sale the same way you can buy a short sale, the same way you can buy a foreclosed property, and it's just not necessarily true. If you turn to page 4, it talks about the language. Two types of properties: non-distressed, which is your traditional properties. The homeowners just selling their house outright. More than likely they have some equity. They're going to make some money off of that property. Most of the properties that we look at today are what we call distressed properties, and there are different types of distressed properties. One is a short sale. That's the property where the homeowner is trying to sell their house for less than what they owe. They upside down, they don't see any way of getting out, they've gotten in some type of financial trouble, so they want to ask the lender to or the banks to let them sell the properties for less than what they owe. Then you have those properties that are foreclosed. Those are the properties that the homeowners have gone into default, and the banks have taken the properties back from the homeowners, and they have them on the market for sale. The foreclosed properties, the terminology you may hear is a bank-owned property or a real estate-owned property. Have anybody heard those terms, familiar with those terms? Yes, no, maybe. The playing field, and each type of those properties they're different decision makers. In a traditional sale, of course, it would be the homeowner that's selling the property. But in a short sale, the homeowner is actually making the decision to sell the property, but the bank is the one that's going to have to approve if they can't sell the property for that price that they want to sell it for, or the bank may even come back and counter. And I think Vera talked a little bit about that negotiating process and being able to counter. And then the bank-owned properties, the banks that are taking their properties back, they set their prices. They also set their standards of how they're going to sell their properties. And you'll write an offer on a regular contract that we have. The banks will send you back a whole nother set of criteria if they accept your offer, saying, we'll accept it based on these terms. So then you have to read through a whole nother set of documents to say yea or nay whether you'll go with the bank's terms. Any questions? The rules, like Vera talked about, when you place the offer, there's certain set of criteria you're going to ask when you make your offer. You're going to ask for a certain price. You're going to set when you want to. It's the you can't follow you. You're going to set when you would like to go to settlement. On a traditional sale, the seller may work with you. On a short sale, it'll be a little bit different. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And also the banks will have a different set of terms about when you can go to settlement. We talked about the decision making, who makes the decision, communication, the communication with the two different traditional sales. You'll communicate with the seller. Short sales, you'll be communicating with the realtor, maybe the bank, maybe it's just a longer whole another process. And then the negotiation. On the price, of course, like I said before, the traditional sales, the seller, they'll be motivated to sell. Depending on their motivation, will determine whether they're going to go with a lower price, or they're going to negotiate a lower price, or they're going to stick to the offer that they want. A lot of times, traditional sellers are emotion. They like their house. They, what they put in the house is the best thing on the market. They put on a deck. They put in a new bathroom. They put a garage out in the back. But really, buyers, you're looking to buy for what the market price is. You really don't care if they like their blue room or their green room or their original shag room. That they think now is an antique and you should put that there. True. The bank-owned or real estate-owned properties that are owned by the banks, they don't have any emotion in this. They want this property off of their books. They want to get rid of it, but that doesn't mean that they're going to get rid of it for a price that's not reasonable. Right. And they're going to do their due diligence. They're going to do their research about a certain area to say what the market price is in that area. So even though you're looking at a bank-owned property, you can't think that you're going to go in and spend $40,000, $50,000 less than what it's listed for. Sometimes, but not all. And the short sales, the sellers are motivated to get out. They want to get out. So they put a house on the market for $200,000. You send them an offer for $160,000. They may accept it just to say, I got an offer, I'm going to get out of it. But that has to go to the bank, and the bank has to say yes or no. And again, the bank is going to do some research to see, should they be selling it for $50,000 less or not. And they'll dictate. And they'll come back and say, no, we want $180 or we want $190. The speed, your traditional seller, they'll, say we can close in 30 days if I have a clear title and we can do things fairly quickly. Your banks, for your bank-owned properties, they'll come back quick, 2 or 3 days and say, yes, I'll accept your offer, but the property may have other liens on it or other things that may delay your process. So here with speed, you got to have patience if you're going to look at a bank-owned property or a short sale. Because a short sale is the reverse of the bank-owned. They may take a long time to come back and say, oh, I want to, we'll let you buy this house for this amount, but I want you to close in 30 days with a whole set of criteria that come along with them approving that short sale.
How long is the typical process now?
Well,
Average,
it still varies, but for short sales, I would say you're getting approvals back still 45, 60 days.
You saying the whole process?
No, just
The approval process. The approval process, but then you have, still that waiting period. But it just depends. You know, a lot of banks are
Within
saying.
90 days.
Yeah, that's what I say on
Yeah,
average.
some of them are taking a year.
Yeah, yeah.
And several buyers, several
Yeah.
contracts. So it just varies. It varies on the bank. It varies on their motivation. It varies on the processes that they've put in place. Some banks are saying they've put some processes in place that are taking a less amount of time. Personally, I haven't seen it. But you just have to have patience, and it has to be the property that you really, really want.
Right, yes,
Willing to wait.
yeah.
Because there's one that's gonna come on the market just
That's
down
right.
the corner.
Uh-huh.
It's about that.
Right. And if you get one that has more than one lender, like I
Right.
do right now, it's going to take
Yeah,
the
I was
lender.
going to mention that.
Right.
Some of the things with the short sales, they have a first and a second mortgage. And if they have a first and a second mortgage, you got to get both banks to agree.
Right,
The Lord knows that they have a first and a second mortgage and a lien.
right. Yeah. So,
And you have to get the first, the second, and the lien holder all to agree. And pretty much what I find, if you have that many attachments to the property, it's going to be very hard to get them all to be in sync with approvals at the same time. You might just want to go look for a property that's around the corner that's maybe bank-owned or conditional sale.
right,
The communication, we all look for good communication between the sellers, the buyers, the realtors, the lenders. That just doesn't always happen. In a traditional sale, it might be a little better, but for the REOs and the short sales, the listing agents are pretty much communicating with the bank. So depending on their relationship that they have with the bank will determine how good that relationship is. So you just have to really get your realtor, once you sign the buyer agency agreement, to really stay on top of a short sale or bank owner. And
How much clout does your realtor have?
no.
What?
None, but it's still about the communication. If you have a realtor that's, one of the things that they do and put at the top of their list is to keep checks and balances and systems in place to communicate with the bank on a regular basis, or communicate with the listing agents on a regular basis, and to get information, you find that things do move along a little more smoothly. So, you want to really screen your realtor. The negotiation process, again, with the regular seller, the negotiations back and forth between them. Negotiation processes with bank-owned and real estate, and with real estate-owned and the short sales. You still have to go from your buyer's agent to the listing agent to the bank and back. So it's still a full circle. That communication may take a little longer. So you may ask a question to a traditional sale, you may get an answer right away. You may have that same question about a foreclosure or a bank-owned or short sale, and your answer may take a little bit longer. So again, any distressed property sale, patience is the key. It's just the key. So, pretty much that's what I have. Any questions?